They kept me in an upstairs room in their apartment for a month. I spent Christmas there, New Year, until they got in touch with the Comet Line. How they did it, I don't know, I didn't inquire.
The Comet Line, its proud boast was, without firing a shot, it never had a gun at all, it tied down a battalion of Germans looking for airmen before the Comet Line got to them and spirited them away.
Eventually I was taken into the Comet Line. I was given forged papers, civilian clothes.
They risked absolutely everything, absolutely. And they did this, they didn't have any training at all in undercover work. This was done completely off their own on their own initiative. And I think it's one of the reasons why they were so successful, because the Germans could not understand how a bunch of civilians, mainly women, were doing this. It's not possible. You've got to have training and all this, that and the other, you know, to it.
They're wonderful people. I've met several of them since that survived.
They were doing this to free their country. And the fact that we were going over nightly was a ginormous encouragement to them. It really was. I've had this said time and time again to me. Bob, we hear you at night, and we know that all is going on. We are not lost.
I got very, very friendly with them and comfortable with them. Used to go out with Morris to parties, went to the cinema, went to a football match at Anderlecht, nearly forgot myself and shouted corner one time, and they said, shh. And that was quite funny, but anyway, we got away with it.
You were absolutely taken care of. You didn't go through the usual thing of number, rank and name. If they wanted to know anything, you told them. You didn't try and avoid anything at all. You put your life entirely in their hands.
And once they knew you were okay, then you just went down the line, you know. They did all organised, the forged passes and everything.
I was given a false identity, a Belgian seaman up from Bordeaux visiting my mother in Brussels, in Sluizenstraat, and 19 Sluizenstraat was where I lived, but if the Germans had gone there, there wasn't a number 19. And the care and attention that the line took in safeguarding not only us but other people as well, so that nobody could go knocking on their door and say that we have got this fella and his address is your house. That house just didn't exist.
They got food coupons forged, I think were sent from England. When they sent money, of course. There was so much ahead. I think it was 600 francs or 800 francs or something like that, the day they wanted, because she had to have the money to get food and clothing and pay people to do the forgeries and all that. And train fares, she had to have money. So they paid her so much ahead for everyone they got back. She didn't get paid for me, I'm afraid. She paid her own way. Dear.
They put their lives in our hands, so that if we had been caught, the chances were that it would be hard for them. And I was asked, if you're caught, could you please try and say nothing for 24 hours to incriminate us, to give us chance to get out of the way?
From Belgium to Paris was a very short trip. And somebody took me by train on that trip. But I was told not to stay with them. You always kept away from them, and you followed them. They were like 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. You never walked with them, you walked behind them. So if you were picked up, they just slipped away, you see. The whole thing was very cleverly done.
Keep a low key. Don't try any heroics or anything at all like that. Be as calm and as quiet as you possibly can. And the fact that I would go out and about with them, we walked about in Paris, we went along the Champs-Élysées. Certain cinemas, cafes and places like that, Germans only. You can't go in there. You stand off the pavement and let the German walk by. You don't try and, push him about.
There was a brother and sister, and I think their mother, and they kept me there for 2 or 3 nights. They had a little room at the back of the shop, and they slept upstairs. And this little room was kept for escapees, like myself. And they kept them there and then took them to the train in Paris to go down to Bayonne and the Pyrenees. They took photographs of me with them. It was a very risky thing to do, but they did it. And sent me the photographs after the war. And then joined a party at the railway station that went down to Bayonne. And that was there I met Dede de Jong, who ran the Comet line, the very famous Dede who died recently, and her father and a young fellow called Francois. And I also met 2 other RAF men there. One was a West Indian, coloured lad, and the other was a Londoner. And we were all taken, the 3 of us were taken in a first-class compartment with the other 3 down to Bayonne. And we got out there, were taken to a cafe, fed, and then taken to quarters to stay for the night. I stayed with a young couple and slept the night there, was fed there.
Janine, who was 17 at the time, took 5 of us from Paris to Saint-Jean-de-Luz overnight in the train. And whilst going down, the trains were, as all trains were, absolutely crowded, people standing in the corridor. It didn't have a central corridor, it was a side corridor in those days. And Dell, the American, he'd been dozing and he looked up and saw a woman standing in the corridor. He opened the door of the compartment. "Say, ma'am, would you like my seat?" She said, "Thank you," and sat down, and Dell stood in the corridor. And we waited for all hell to break loose, and I looked across and there was Janine sat in the corner, didn't turn a hair. Nothing was said, nothing ever happened.
Next day we were taken down to Saint-Jean-de-Luz, which was the sort of starting off point for the Pyrenees.
I sat on the back step of that farmhouse in the evening talking with Dede, and I sensed the difficulty and the danger of the task she was doing. I was going home to freedom. She was going to be staying there. And I asked her, why Dede, why do you do this? And she said very simply, because it's there to be done.
We were due to go over that night, but the guide said that the river had swollen with the bad weather, and he'd have to wait until the next day to see if the river had gone down. The river Bidasoa that we had to cross to get into Spain.
Later on, in 1943, Dede de Jong was arrested at the farmhouse at the foothills of the Pyrenees, and with her was another airman, Stan Hope, and he was arrested.
We heard a noise of traffic coming. We said, "What's all this?" you see, and it was German troops arriving. Apparently some little local farmhand had given the game away, for money of course, to the Germans in Saint-Jean. And they sent a couple of wagons up with troops and surrounded the farm. And we heard we were upstairs in one of the bedrooms having some cheap bread and cheese or something. I remember I had a little table knife in my hand and the door suddenly opened. In fact, I said, "Here come the Gestapo," big joke, you know. And the door opened and in came the German soldiers, a machine gun pointing at us. And I remember putting that knife down very slowly and carefully and putting my hands up. And we all did, the 3 of us, and Dede, she was with us as well.
He described Dede's actions at that point as being utterly fearless, and she made a mockery of the people who were her captors.
I was the only fit one amongst the 3 of us. So that was why we stayed the night with the river being swollen and the bad legs. And Florentino made the decision not to go. And that's when we were caught. If we'd gone that night, of course, we'd have got away with it. Oh, and that's the way things go, isn't it? Some you win, some you lose.